Hi guys, this is my first spoiler review in a very, very long time. I'm excited to do it. Before I get into it, it is a spoiler review. I have put it in the description. I've put it on the title. So if you haven't watched the film and you're listening to this, I am going to spoil things in the film. If you don't want to be spoiled, please tune out. I appreciate the support. I appreciate you swinging through, but I don't want to be responsible for breaking your perception of anything if you've not watched the film. Before I go into the spoiler review, so this gives you plenty of time to tune out, I'm going to address the elephant in the room, not because I want to talk about it, and not because I'm going to encourage or even go into the depths of it. The Snyder versus Gunn thing. Cut it out, guys. I'm not here for the comments about it. I'm here to talk about the film. If you want to compare to other Superman, compare in an interesting way, but don't just focus on one particular Superman. That, to me, doesn't necessarily signify all of the Superman or all of the iterations or the consistency of iteration in its 85 or 80 odd years of publication history. For me, this character was written in 1938. It's had various different writers, various iterations. It's had one-off novels, various stories, multiverses. Superman, it's vision, like Batman. There is a place for everything. Okay? I agree with that. There's a place for each character, and I'm not going to dismiss it. I loved Henry Cavill's. I loved Snyder's vision. I liked his idea of creating this trilogy-like feeling, almost sort of Lord of the Rings-esque, as opposed to this expanded universe. Gunn's creating an expanded universe. Let's treat them both with respect. Let's appreciate them as best we can. If we can't appreciate them, let's not shit on them and try to basically besmirch one better than the other. Because when Cavill's came out, people were constantly going, well, Christopher Reeve's the only Superman there is. None will be better. Everyone's entitled opinion. Everyone has their own Superman. Everyone has their own Batman. Everyone has their own Green Lantern. Spider-Man, Captain America, Iron Man, all of that. Everyone has their own. I get that. There's a way of doing it. And I'm just telling you now, I am not going to endorse that methodology that people have implemented. I'm not going to endorse that mentality that people have got themselves into. I'm going to talk about the film. So let's go from that to let's talk about what I feel was a really, really great Superman movie. Shall we get into it? So the film opens up with a quick sort of wrap up of what's happened in the time period of this Superman's been operating. Thankfully, we didn't go through the whole origins again. We all know how Clark gets here. Kal-El, Superman, sent in obviously a pod from his dying planet by his parents. Blah, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, we get there. First few moments of the film, he whistles. Krypto comes running along and takes him to the Fortress of Solitude. Obviously not without its challenges, because Krypto is an incredibly hyperactive dog that just wants to be played. He just wants to play. Anyone who owns a pet or has ever had a puppy or a dog in their younger years are completely undisciplined unless you really start putting your foot down. And you can quite clearly see throughout the film that Superman's adopted this thing but does not know how to discipline or implement it. Anyway, you find out later on why. But yeah, overall, it is very much the essence of the film, and Superman as a whole is innocence. The dog represents innocence and just a willingness to want help and play and have fun and just exist, be a dog. But obviously metabolizing the sun's solar rays into superpowers, and obviously, yeah, pretty much a hyperactive canine with the powers of Superman almost. So yeah, that pretty much signifies that innocence there, and I really like that. I really like Krypto as a character. I've seen him in other iterations. There's Batman Superman Apocalypse DVD that came out years ago, straight to DVD animation movie, and Krypto is very much a very protective guard dog of the fortress. Obviously, he's not that now, but that's not to say he's not going to grow. We want to see this character grow. This is an opportunity for characters to grow, so we want to see it grow. Of course, the Fortress of Solitude comes into it. You get to see all the Superbots. Number 4 was Gary, as he'll come to be known to be. Very all-star Superman. Very much with a modern take of how Superman's done, really, and how we represented the Fortress of Solitude, and now there's different technology and stuff going off in the background. Very much like that. You see some iterations of this translation in like recent comics with Tom Taylor, who doesn't necessarily write Clark Kal-El directly, but has when he's involved in these situations it's happened. Like, for example, the Justice League. We've had recent issues of the Justice League where they went against an Omega version of like Batman, the Protocol Batman, basically. Yeah, when they're facing off against them, that is kind of like when you've seen in the background how this operated. I really love that. I absolutely love that, and just like very much in line with comics at the moment and how they see Superman. They've given him depth, given him intelligence, almost hinted towards that he is pretty intelligent as a guy. To build these droids, he might not be emotionally attuned necessarily, because you'll find out through the whole film, but he is a very emotional guy because he cares. Anyway, yeah, so we move on there. He goes to fight the Hammer of Baravia. I think I've pronounced that correctly. Baravia, a foreign country. And then obviously in the intro it mentions that he stopped a war going off for potential mass genocide. I know people are going to make massive direct comparisons because the current geopolitical issues that are going off in the world today. Fun fact, did you know that the world has operated in war consistently for hundreds of years? You look at how many wars and the timeline gap between them. I'm not going to go and list every single one of them, but you go from, like, for example, the 1800s up until the current now. It's almost like consistency of war. So if people go, oh yeah, they're touching on sensitive topics. Fun fact, there's been wars consistently. So where do you draw the line? And this is about sending a message that this is a man for the world to share, not just one country. And yeah, I'll get onto the message. Anyway, the acts of him intervening in there has brought about this guy, as we think. Anyway, Superman loses the fight, sort of pretty much knocked down. I think he's more winded more than anything else. And then you see him fly off and go and join Lex through this pocket. Well, he flies off into this campsite outside of Metropolis, goes for a pocket dimension and pops out into Lex's office, and it's Ultraman underneath it. So straight away we know there's a hidden agenda here. Geopolitical issues are coming into play, and it looks like Lex is stirring the pot for his own agenda. Then we next move on to sort of Clark going into the newsroom and his dynamic with everyone else, how he's seen, sort of thing. You don't get much emphasis on that in the film, but again, we've had it before. We've seen Clark before. I think if anything, it sets up for something else later on down the road. But it still built a structure to the news team. It's still built that this news team exists. Jimmy Olsen exists. Cat Grant exists. Steve from Sports exists. Lois obviously exists. Perry White exists. It all exists there, and there's an emphasis, and there will be later on in the film, to these people being influential to the success of the day, success of Superman saving the world, and yada yada yada. We'll get into that. I'm doing this so I don't expand on things too quickly. And then sort of you have a moment where I think for me, which was really, really influential and key to Lois's view. Now, obviously, it's a Superman movie and people want to talk about Superman, but you can't talk about Superman without talking about Lois. And for me, Lois throughout the years, and again, I try not to draw a comparison because each Lois operates differently for its time. I like this Lois because she felt very ballsy. She hid someone basically in her house, and she picked up a baseball bat as the first thing. Most Superman iterations with their Lois has always felt that she was played too much to be the damsel in distress, and Superman was a call away, and all the problems would be fixed. And if they wouldn't, she dramatically managed to land on her feet or something. This felt like a Lois that didn't need that. She also had an argument with Superman. It wasn't about fanboying over him or being a fangirl over him, or how she holds him up holes in this just like complete delusional view of him that he can never do no wrong. I really like that, and the only real times you get to see that I've seen on screen, not just the big screen, was the most recent one was Superman and Lois. I'd mentioned Lois and Clark, but I think the controversy around Dean Cain, I think we just leave that one alone for the time being. But Superman and Lois, the most recent incarnation of Superman to date on screen in a media and live action. I would say that they've had conflicts, they've had resolutions, and it felt very human. And this felt very human. Their interactions. Clark ultimately wants to help the world. He doesn't want to be stopped for helping the world. People want him to answer a political answer. People want him to go down a politics route. He's just simply a guy who wants to help an old lady cross the street without getting harmed. He doesn't want to answer to people of authority, not because he doesn't believe in authority or believe in justice system or anything like that. He just wants to do what he believed he was sent here to do, is to save people, to help people. And he has powers. And if he can do so, he will do so. And that's purity in the human side of him, I would say, because his parents' message in the beginning, you find out his translation is broken, and you only get half the message, and that's fine. We'll talk about the other half in a bit. But Mara and Pa Kent, Jonathan and Martha Kent, their influence on his life and his human side, and I think for me that was very much an instrumental point of the film, and you see it very much here in its first moment, that he just wants to do right. No race, no country, no hidden political agenda, just a man trying to help other people live. And he very much highlights, yes, property damage, yes, equipment damage, but no one was significantly hurt, no one died, everyone was fine. And you see that throughout the film, and that leads into the next point where he's having to fight a kaiju because Lex wants to basically distract Superman while he goes into the Fortress of Solitude. Lex goes into the Fortress of Solitude. You get the engineer. She hacks into the Fortress of Solitude, and she basically extrapolates information from there, being the broken message from his Kryptonian parents, which is really fantastic. I think it's incredible. Like how they handled that scene, because you got to handle it with delicacy, especially with dogs involved. I mean, you can't really go around abusing a dog, but they handled it. They nullified him very quickly, and I think it was more saddened by the broken droids a little bit, getting destroyed. But I love Krypto, so if they'd hurt Krypto, I would have probably had a stronger opinion. But you can just feel the complete malice and hatred from Lex in this film, and I think that's good. It was also very calculated for the most part of it. But anyway, fast forward to the kaiju battle. Superman's obviously trying to take this thing down. He's trying to take it down very carefully. He obviously is watching and preserving life. He's making sure property damage is limited. He's trying to basically make sure he takes this big thing down that wants to wreck the entire city, but without anyone getting hurt and minimalistic damage. I don't care what you compare it to. I'm isolating this now. That is Superman. Superman doesn't want to kill something. Superman wants to disable it and try and talk it down. And if he can save it. Then you get the Justice Gang come in. Yes, the Justice Gang, not the Justice League. That will probably come down the line. I'm pretty sure that's going to get a makeover. And that's probably been nodded to with the fact that the whole of Justice in this movie. And the Justice Society members were also in the sort of like painted on the wall as well. But we'll go into that later on. For me, that very much they came in. They were very heavy-handed and things like that. And Supes is like, come on, guys, there must be a better way of handling this. They basically kill the kaiju, and it's about to fall on people. And again, Superman just stops it, picks it up, moves it over, and he's just saddened. He's saddened that there wasn't if we had to put it down, there could have been a more humane way of doing it in the way they went about it. And yeah, Superman feels the loss of life, has a conscious thought. He's not just carrying it on his shoulders. he's expressing it out loud, and I really love that. Anyway, fast forward, he crawls from under the kaiju after getting it down, gets hugged by kids, and that signifies, this is a Superman that people look up to and aspire to be in love. And then, boom, you get hit with a bombshell. Luthor has supposedly translated this. Now, they say they've translated it correctly. The film indicates that this is a true translation. However, it's not to say that the video itself wasn't doctored in linguitions. Like, when people translate languages and your translation from a different language, especially an alien language, I don't necessarily believe they've done it correctly. And this could be something down the road they could have done. They did. Obviously, the new Superman animated series came out, and obviously there were conquerors, Kryptonians, and they sort of, it could be that kind of route, and it's not uncommon to have that sort of like take on it. However, for me, I was talking to my partner when we were walking back from watching the second viewing today. We've very much talked about how people can make mistranslations indirectly by sometimes certain languages have a double meaning, or it can be mistranslated. Like, if you Google translate something, sometimes it doesn't break the full sentence down. So a mistranslation, whether it not be a true translation to what they can ascertain, a mistranslation, but also the video was corrupted or damaged on the way when he was arriving here. There's all sorts of things. Either way, basically it says, we've sent you here. You should rule the world, and if people don't like it, kill them. It's kind of funny because obviously there's Injustice out there. There's the Injustice series. You've got the Crime Syndicate, which is obviously Ultraman, the true Ultraman of the multi-universe. You've got, Homelander. You've got Invincible universes with Omni-Man and various other iterations of evil Superman. That was kind of a nod to those, but also he was shocked, and he learned very much in the public eye, and people reacted instantly, and you could see horror, dread, disappointment, sadness, a lot of emotions, and people believing as well what the media is spinning out, which again, it's very close to today, because today we have geopolitical issues with immigration, because he's an alien from another planet. Let's put there's no woke about it. He's an immigrant. He's an alien immigrant, but an immigrant nonetheless. And therefore, they were putting him out there like, oh, he's an evil immigrant. And that's to say all immigrants are evil or anything like that. People may take that as a translation. However, for me, what it showed is how quickly the media can turn someone who's a godlike into the enemy so quickly. And people then just sunk their teeth into it. And that happens scarily today. People can be so easily swayed by the media, by what they just read and hear and listen to, not hearing anyone else's voice. If they heard Superman just say, look, can you give us some answers? Superman goes out, well, I've never heard the second part of that. But that's not even hearing it. I don't believe in that. How can you think I would do that? I've done all this. It doesn't matter where. I think the overall message I would take from it is, and this is the message I think comes at the end of the film, is it doesn't matter where we come from. It's about the path that we walk and the actions that we take. And it's about our intentions as well. Because ultimately, our intentions may be good. They may come across bad. But our intentions, if they are pure, can be seen as pure. If they're not, they will not be seen as pure. If people are looking for other alternative intentions that don't necessarily exist, how the media can play on that and instantly turn it. We've had those examples in so many worlds, so many life history. We've had worlds shown on screen showing this happens as well. Mickey 17 was a deep film that most people probably didn't take a deep meaning from it. But there were so many draws to real life, which was scary. In a very sort of shooting by the hip satire humor almost, and you could see it again here, and it's quite scary. So I guess it gets the viewer questioning things and making comparisons, and that's fine. Look, I'm all for that, because comic book readers will know that the writer sometimes wants to talk to his audience and not necessarily get an answer, but offer a question for you to answer yourself internally. And I think that's what Gunn's doing, being an uber nerd himself and an incredible comic book writer, director from the comic book from the fact that he probably could be a comic book writer. Obviously, he prefer directing his media. His media he prefers. But anyway, moving on. That pretty much wraps up what I would say the first half of the film. There's a Barovia stuff in the background. And again, you find out that's being a coup between Barovia's president and Luthor. Luthor has bargained himself a section of where they're obviously going to wipe out this nation that's part of Barovia, I think. I'm just trying not to compare it to real life. And he's going to get the other half of the country. He's giving away weapons for it and all sorts. And that's hidden agenda. And then you get Superman handing himself to the DOJ. He gets some points in this pocket dimension, which Luthor has created. He obviously talks about it. I think the funniest thing for me from that scene before I cut into the second part was the hundreds of monkeys typing and creating hate on the internet by like fake hashtags and using Twitter almost. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't happen today, to get people to move agendas and move opinions. You happen it so often. Like, people try and make movements from that aren't necessarily pure. I can think of one very, very much against James Gunn himself. Yeah, I'm not going to mention names or anything like that, or any sort of like fandoms or anything like that. But yeah, it felt very much sort of like, guys, I hear you, I see you. Can we just not? Can we just not do this? That's how I'm envisioning it right now. But it also gave me a bit of a laugh as well, like to the old philosophy of like, if you had 1,000 monkeys who lived an infinite life, they would eventually write rewrite the full play of Shakespeare, or full playthroughs of Shakespeare, or translate Shakespeare, something along that lines. I can't remember the exact anecdote that's made, but yeah, that's also what my brain came to as well. They're in this pocket dimension, obviously, where time may operate differently. So it just made me laugh. But obviously that's the first half of the film. I will go into to sort of the second part of it now would be. And what I'll do as well is I'll break down each of the characters and stuff like down as well. But obviously he gets out, he escapes from the pocket dimension with the help of Mr. Terrific, Metamorpho, Lois, and that's a good thing as well. Lois doesn't accept he should give up being Superman and give himself into the DOJ so easily, when there's obviously something more to it than that. She obviously works out that Superman's on the sort of the pay. Lex is on the pay later on for getting his own half the country, but we'll go into that. So yeah, they get him out. He's weakened. He goes back to Ma and Pa, and they have a really, really nice moment at the parents. And I'm trying not to go into too much spoilers, because look, I could talk about the whole film, about the plot. You've watched the film, you know at this point. So they have a really nice moment, and I think you see the very human side of how people will view it as the simple, there's no depth to them, but that doesn't need to be. It's the caring, loving nature. You can see that they love their son. It doesn't have to be complex. Sometimes it can just be simple, and advocating that. And I'd like to see an expansion on their relationship with him at some point. I love that both parents are still involved, because people, while they've watched the movies, they see Jonathan Kent dies. Yada yada yada. We've seen it dozens of times. And in the comic books, a lot of the comic iterations, Jonathan's still alive. They actually have a lot of influence on people like Bruce, for example, where he would go round for dinner with them and talk and operate as almost like a second lot of parents for him. So having sort of the moral conscience of humanity that has been steering Clark, I'd love to see that for influencing on people like Bruce as well, if they obviously become best friends and super friends almost. So that was really great. And then we move on to the latter part of the film, where Luthor's just so obsessed with just beating Superman that he actually just opens the pocket dimension, just starts splitting a huge rip in Metropolis, if not the world at some point, if he wasn't careful. But yeah, then you watch Superman, obviously, is then torn between the choice of going to Baravia, because they're about to invade and they're about to just wipe everyone out. And then Mr. Terrific's like, no, I need you in Metropolis, because it's not going to matter. If you don't get over here now, there's going to be no world. It doesn't matter. Baravia will, it doesn't matter about that. because the world's in danger. So he goes off there to sort of shorten it down. Metamorpho and Hawkgirl and Green Lantern obviously deal with the Baravia thing. And I think it was really good as well by showing, look, he doesn't have to split himself. He just has to rely on other people and hope and trust that they will do the job. And again, this is about trust, naivety, which gets brought up in a really, really funny point against Lois and Guy having an argument about how trusting he is with people. And it's so annoying, it's sickening. And it is sickening. It is incredibly sickening. And it's what makes me hate but love Superman, because he's just so naively, sickeningly positive and just sees the good in everybody. But anyway, he flies to Metropolis, damage control, lifts an entire building so it doesn't fall on a poor woman who's trying to drive away from it all. And yeah, and just effectively he's having to fight Engineer and Ultraman. Fun fact, Ultraman is Superman. Yep, he is, well, you know who he is anyway. He's Clark's clone. Lex cloned him. I think there's very much a nod to Bizarro. If they had Bizarro, everyone would know who it is. So Ultraman being hidden under a mask, I think is great. And you can still have an Ultraman that exists elsewhere. He gave a very Black Noir sort of feel to him. Yeah, he was very simplistic, but obviously Luthor spoke through him and guided him, and that's not the first time we've seen an iteration of that. If you actually watch sort of Red Son Superman, there's a very similar situation where he's talking through him and he's guiding him how to beat him and stuff like that, and then obviously Super Mob. That has happened before. There have been various iterations. Anyway, they're fighting for a long time. Superman gets rid of him. He doesn't kill him, and I don't care what anyone says. He effectively knocked him into an object that was falling into the black hole from the split in the rift. You don't see a body die. There's always a way back. You could die in the vacuum of space, come back alive, be slightly undead, and there you go. You've got Bizarro. Sorted. You've created a new character from the catalyst of it. And it wasn't snapping of Zod's neck or anything like that, and I'm only bringing that up because people will make direct comparisons, and I'm just going to address the elephant in the room. That always felt weird, that scene. Same with Superman destroying half the city while in a fight. Obviously terraforming had a bit to do with it, but yeah, there's a lot more than that. This was different. This was completely different. And even when you're watching him fight, he's pulling his punches every time. He's fighting. He could end the fight pretty quickly if he just went viciously. He doesn't. He pulls his punches. He's a man in a very... I think the best way of remembering it is Tim Daly's take. Not Tim Daly's take. Tim Daly's the animated series one. Where we got the Justice League where Bruce Timm had written Superman and Paul Dini with the intention when he was fighting Darkseid that he lives in a plastic world. He has to always be careful not to break something, to break someone. And that was the general message in this. He could so let loose. He could have done so much more damage, but he didn't. I also love the theorists out there that were like, oh my god, Superman uses X-ray and damages his eyes. Oh my god, there's a weak Superman. Watch the film. I mean, come on guys. He gets literally zapped in the eyes by the other Superman. That's how he gets his eyes bruised. It just makes me laugh. How people create these theories and they've just been knocked down. It's kind of funny. But anyway, I digress. He beats Ultraman. He then fights the Raptors, beats them down. Actually, I know he beats the Raptors down and then he gets Ultraman. But yeah, either way, he beats him down. He wins the day. He then flies to Luthor and takes him on direct confrontation. While that's obviously going off, the news report has been released by the Daily Planet because obviously they were still investigating while this situation was going down. Overall, everyone was involved, not just Superman, in saving the day. Because if it wasn't for Terrific trying to work things out, he probably wouldn't have been able to slow it down. He then managed to put the port back together again. Superman obviously keeping the other people off of him. The Super Gang or the Justice Gang or whatever they want to call themselves currently, because we know it's going to change. They were dealing with another problem, helping him out, which then alleviated his mind to focus on the whole of Metropolis and the world potentially. It was overall very well handled, the story in that sense there, and everyone had an integral part to play while Superman being the main beacon of it all. So for me, I really enjoyed the film. The plot had people mentioned pacing issues, and I get it. I understand. I don't think that was. For me, I feel like some scenes weren't long enough. I would have liked more, but then I would be sat in with a 3-hour film, and they want to keep it easy and condensed so people can digest this film and come out of it and going, okay, I really enjoyed that. It was action packed, family fun. I loved that film, and that's what people want. And I completely condone it. Like I think it was great. It was if I want an extended cut, I'll watch an extended cut separately on DVD. Lord of the Rings did the exact same thing. They released a theatrical version, then they released an extended version. Snyder's obviously done the same thing, blah, blah, blah. Can bring up hundreds of examples. Anyway, for me, that was just so, yeah, I really enjoyed the film. I think the next part, we should probably talk about individual topics. Because we talked about the story itself, the flow, we've talked about various points, and I think, yeah, I think for me, we need to talk about individual characters and how they impacted the film. So let's talk about our resident big blue Boy Scout. I am incredibly tired, by the way, so I'm mispronouncing things and saying things backwards and wrong because I'm still tired. I'm on like 4 hours sleep. Hype. Doing some charity work over the weekend. But Superman. Did I like Superman the way he was? Yes, I do. Yes, I did. Yes, I do. And yes, I hope to continue seeing that Superman because it was Superman. For me, it gave me a fresh feeling of what Reeve could look like in the modern day. It gave me a fresh feeling of, the animated series Superman, Justice League Superman, even Tyler's Superman to a degree. It's given me inspiration to want to be a better person. I love Batman, but he's broody. He's always brooding. He's just constantly in this perpetuism of depression, and you can get yourself into a hole with it if you're not careful. I love Batman. His determination, stuff like that. But Superman offers a separate determination, and this is, for me, the film centered around not how alien he is, but how human he is. And I don't think many other films do that. And I think other films do have a lean on Superman's perception on the big screen that he's an alien from another planet. Let's talk about the alien side. Let's show him an alien side. This was like, let's have subtle hints to him being an alien. Let's point the like I say again, the elephant in the room. Let's show the Fortress of Solitude. But even the way they handled the fortress and all the things going off there, it was subtle. It's like, yep, here's Superbots. There you go. Here's Crypto, a super dog. There we go. And just carrying on with it. Obviously, there's a cameo in the film, Supergirl. I know people want me to talk about that. Very brief. By the looks of it, I don't think she's quite found her identity at the moment. She's kind of partying. She's probably most recently only just come onto the planet. And everything she knew is now not there. Obviously, she came under thinking that Clark was going to be a baby. He's now a fully grown man. He's Superman. If you know, obviously, the story of Kara Kent, aka Supergirl, or Kara as a character came with this idea. It's not the idea, and now she's like, well, I don't need to look after him. What do I do? I'm just going to party and try and figure myself out a bit. And yeah, I'm completely enjoy that. And there's obviously iterations of Kara out there in the comics. And most recently, it's kind of like that, arriving in the coat and stuff like that. It's a look from the comic books. Just Google it. Just have a look at it. And the reason why I'm talking about Kara is because the contrast of what we see so far with her with Superman. Superman is very much this he is sickly naive. He's a character it just annoys me to the core because he's so trusting. He's so sickly naive, and he wants to see the good in people, and he makes you want to be a better person. He's a fictional character, but I walked out of that film smiling, and I get annoyed because I would rather fold my arms in a corner and look broody and edgy, which is a joke made by Peacemaker in the film. About, I like to kill people, trying to shame us for being edgy in the corner like that. It's kind of funny because obviously it's a bit of a satire joke. But yeah, he's just sickly, annoyingly naive and just happy. And I love it. The positivity. It makes me want to be a better person. And I think there was one anecdote, and I think this summarizes it all as well. James Gunn wants people to walk away from his film with one thing: to love the person next to you a little bit more. And Superman kind of just signifies that. Just he wants to teach about loving each other, treating thy neighbor with respect, seeing past race, countries, divisions, beliefs, seeing past that and seeing a connection with your fellow man, woman, person, everyone. And I think that to me signifies what Superman's about, and that film did that. He didn't care necessarily how he was being treated. He did, but he didn't, because it wasn't going to stop him from being Superman. It made him question a few things. Ultimately, he was going to be Superman regardless. He handed himself in because he wanted to find Krypto, because he was going to be alone on his own, and he didn't want him to be alone out there on his own. So he went and did that. It wasn't about truth or justice, because essentially he knew his truth, he knew the justice, he knew the right and wrong. He wouldn't do that, and he would answer for that and answer those questions later on. But right now, his mind was on about an innocent in danger, his dog, effectively. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I know people have gone, oh yeah, he's got a dog. Oh, how ridiculous is that? Man. There's an entire franchise that was built around the fact that a dog was killed. Let's just be careful where we start throwing mud, because people forget about these things. But I think Superman ultimately was written really, really well. I could talk about him for hours. The film, just he was Superman. It felt like Superman. And I will say this, because I'm not doing any more. I'm steering away as much as possible from comparisons. I love Superman and the Man of Steel, probably for the wrong reasons, because it reminded me of Batman, brooding, take a realism. This took the same sort of perspective in some regards, but gave an alternative turn to how to react to it. And I really like that. That's all I'm going to say, because I enjoy both iterations for their own separate reasons. But yeah, I enjoyed the way Superman was written, and I hope we see more of him. I hope this is a success. We should probably talk about other characters as well. So let's talk about Lex Luthor. Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor. My God, did he do a really damn good job. He was a mix of the 78 Luthor and the Smallville Luthor, you know. I felt a real goddamn hatred for Superman through him. I could feel it. I didn't hate Superman, but obviously you hate Superman because he represents everything that he isn't. Not necessarily from the strength point of view, but this naivety, this wanting to be a better man and having no hidden agenda about it, whereas Lex wanted to twist the media and everything he could do for his own agenda, for his own intentions, and he didn't care how much blood was spilled because of it, or what he did in order to get there and how many lives it cost. That to me was incredible. I just loved it. I just loved it. He used his brains. We got to see his intelligence, creating a pocket dimension. Not just, oh yeah, I can do this and that. He actually created something, and you believed it because of the way he operated, the way he also coordinated Ultraman's attacks on Superman, just breaking it down. He knew the combat. It was incredible. I really liked it. It made Lex Luthor feel so much more fleshed out than just the evil genius. Ha ha ha, billionaire, I want to take over the world. It was more like, okay, this is a guy who's a complete philanthropist. I can't say the word. A man with a lot of money and a businessman trying to build the world up in his vision and build relationships and use them to his own agenda, and being intelligent about it. I mean, he's ruthless in terms of interrogation of Superman. He kills an innocent man who later then is celebrated as a hero. Nonetheless, though, it was so brutal. And Lex was brutal in this. And Nicholas brought a complete energy to it. He had a very Rosenbaum feel about it. And I think that's a Lex Luthor that most people argue that was just, yeah, everybody loves. And obviously you had other ones there, we've got the 78, you've got Returns there, you've got animated series, the Justice League series. There was almost a bit of everything from there. And I only say Rosenbaum because most people hail Smallville as the best live action adaptation of Lex Luthor in their opinion. So for me, it just had a bit from everywhere. Maybe missed a couple out. But yeah, I look forward to where they sort of take Lex down, because I don't think that's going to be the end of Lex. He's just way too fascinating as a character. So we'll see where he goes. Maybe they'll flesh him out to be sort of a redemption arc, because he does get in the comics and he joins the Justice League, and yeah, you never know. Okay, let's talk the Justice Gang, or the Justice League soon to be. The Hall of Justice. Oh, the building. The murals on the wall with the GSA in the background. You saw Wildcat. You saw, I think, Dr. Fate. I think you may have seen Jay Garrick. I'm not sure. There's a blend of colours. I watched it twice and tried to spot them all. Look, when it comes out on DVD, I'm going to pull the damn thing out of it and try and work out which one they are. That was brilliant. Hawkgirl was my only one I wish she'd got more. I'd love to know her origins more, to know which direction they're taking her. Because obviously there's various iterations. There's Reincarnation, there is Thanagarian. Yeah, we can go down all day long. We didn't really get to know. I hope she gets a bit more fleshed out. I hope we maybe find out a little bit more from the Peacemaker. Something like that, I don't know. But I would like to see more of her. I liked her casting. I liked her attitude. She was very much gravelly, ballsy. She reminded me very much of the Hawkgirl from the Justice League animated series. So for me, I hope that's kind of like the direction they've inspired for her, because she was incredible. So yeah, Hawkgirl, I wish we got more. Guy Gardner, Nathan Fillion. People who have reservations about Nathan Fillion and the way he looks and stuff like that, they obviously didn't see the ball cut in the comics. They obviously don't know how much of an arsehole he is in the comics. Nathan Fillion just knocked it out of the park. I'm not going to emphasize any more on Nathan Fillion's, because yeah, we're going to see him in Lanterns as well. And his interaction with Hal and John Stewart is going to, I think, capitalize on how much of an ass he is, but also how talented he is and how strong he is. I will say this as well, just on the topic of I keep saying the Super Gang there, because they're obviously in the Superman movie. The Justice Gang they addressed an issue that a lot of Marvel movies that people mention, and again, I'm not comparing to like poke holes, but a lot of Marvel and DC movies, when someone goes off in a city, why the hell is any other super not kicked in to help out? And it shows when Superman's actually like just coming in and he's talking to Lois, and in the background they're fighting this imp, this interdimensional imp, in the background, and she's like, "Are you not going to help them out?" She's like, "No, they've got it. They can handle it. It's only an interdimensional imp," and just knock it down. That's the reason why it's not getting involved. I don't need to get involved because they're dealing with it. I can take a break for 5 minutes. And obviously, it's preservation of life, but he's already assessed the situation and worked out he doesn't need to get involved. For me, it's brilliant. How many times have we watched Spider-Man deal with a problem and gone, why hasn't Captain America kicked in? Why hasn't Daredevil kicked in or anything like that? This answer is kind of like one of those, well, they probably made an assessment, didn't need to do it. Sometimes you don't need to mention it. However, it's there. Comics, obviously, they address it a lot more easier, because comics, you can do that. You don't have to worry about hiring, directing, or anything like that. But like, just to see it for what it was enjoyable. Just that. And then Mr. Terrific was terrific. Yeah, it's a bit of on the nose. I'm glad to see him. They did Mr. Terrific in the Arrowverse. It was awful, in my opinion. I loved Arrow. It was awful. Didn't even scratch the surface of Mr. Terrific. This did it perfectly. I'm glad he got a lot of spotlight. I was kind of worried he'd go into a background a little bit. Hawkgirl obviously did a bit in comparison, and that's a bit sad, but hopefully we'll get a bit more because she's in Peacemaker. Mr. Terrific probably isn't in Peacemaker. However, Mr. Terrific was brilliant. His intelligence was on show, his talent, his genius with gadgets, his interaction with different characters, being a very logic-based character, emotions don't really show him unless it's like extreme moments of nerves or maybe just the odd crack a smile. His interaction with Lois was brilliant. His interaction with Clark, interaction with other people were I don't think the film ever to me felt like characters were imbalanced or in any way, shape or form. Everyone got the right amount of time, bar maybe a couple, like for example Hawkgirl, but it's going to happen now and again. But they balance the characters really, really well. When you're in a Superman film, Superman's such a pivotal figure. You can't really overshadow him, especially if it's written correctly. They didn't. They operated as story dynamics that added to the context of the story. And if you remove them out, you'd have a different outcome. That's the main thing, because a lot of times you do have cameos or sub-characters that offer very little. They offered enough to actually show that without them, we wouldn't have got to this narrative now. And I think that was important. And that was the main thing. Because it didn't subtract anything from Superman. If anything, it kind of added to Superman. There's the moment during the attack at the end with obviously the geopolitical issue that's going off, and the kid pulls up the flag, and it's almost like a raising. It's his sign, his signal, raising, calling the other superheroes to be inspired, to just step out there and do what's right, not for some business profiteering reason, not for some self-promotion, but because it's the right thing to do. And obviously it gets spoken about at the beginning, but like, no, just do it because it's right. And they speak about it with Lois as well. So yeah, for me, I really liked that, and I think the Justice Gang was incredibly I really loved them. I'm glad they were added in. It's a comic book movie. At the end of the day, you want to see other characters in a comic book movie and expand the universe and give it a feeling of expansion. And that's what it did. That's what it did for me. And I hope it did for many other viewers. The news team. Perry White. Jimmy Olsen. Cat Grant. Steve of Sports. I always forget his last name. You did have Drew there as well in the background as well, but I don't think, we'll see maybe later. Okay, the news team's a bit of a mixed one. I like the news team without Clark because it was very much like their influence in the story without going Clark's in the room. He's Superman. We all know that. Oh my God, what's he going to do? What's he going to do next? It was like an emphasis of these guys are working with the Clark to be able to save the world. And they're doing so trying to basically, uncover the truth as journalists do and share it with the people, and hopefully create justice and encourage justice to be upheld. It's very much the cornerstone of what Lois perpetuates when she talks about truth getting out there and the people knowing, and people entitled to know the truth. She's mentioned it in various different medias there. That's what happened. And she has that very much that conversation with Clark about him being accountable for his actions as well, and that yes, I get your true intentions, however not everybody will view that, and I need to know the truth of the matter and what's hidden behind the truth, and not just this blind naivety because people aren't going to just buy it even though I believe it. The truth is people will see the different truth, so help me to understand. There's that from Lois. Jimmy being a journalist himself, not just a photographer. I think if he was just a photographer, I think you'd have the problem of, okay, how does he fit in the modern world's sort of media these days? Because you can get pictures really easy now, and So for me, having him as a journalist was incredible. Having a bit of a lazy man was quite funny because I kind of got I'm not going to mention it too much, but Lois and Clark's version where it was a bit of like a data and a bit of the girl sort of thing, and I got a bit of a feeling of that. So for me, it was that kind of like fresh feel of Jimmy Olsen, not just being the sort of like the nerdy ginger-haired kid who follows Superman around like a fanboy. It was very much this is a guy of independence and his own sort of personality. I like that. Steve Sports was there to offer like slight comic relief every so often in short periods, but obviously the Office wannabe jock that basically gave a bit of a tough time. Very very short, but enough to flesh out the team. And you got Cat Grant, obviously she's gossip column, things like that, where she deals with the celebrities. Very much they made her a bit of an airhead. Most comics she's an airhead. Most of the time she has been an airhead. Various other medias that obviously haven't done that to her, like Supergirl TV series. However, I liked her in this because it's very much the gossip column, and it might flesh out a bit more where she talks about maybe stuff down the line. Well, maybe we're going to get a sequel probably. Hopefully, if this is a success. So, yeah, I think the news team was balanced. They always offer something there. You're obviously going to get more that are more prominent than the others, like Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane, Perry White. I like that Perry White was just in the background. He's not necessarily a guy who's reporting on the news. Not as he's there to hone the skills and encourage him to find more and know more and ask questions, so that he knows that they've got their answers for it. So I like that. Obviously, with TV series, you've had Perry White involved, or if he has been involved or seen it, or cartoons, whatever. Obviously, he's got a bit more screen time. This film can't go past that screen time. So, in the short brief time he was there, there's enough influence. And again, we may expand upon that life at some point. I also love that Perry White just worked out that Superman and Lois are dating. I mean, it's addressing the elephant in the room. They're not subtle about it. And even the thing they're being subtle. And I think that's kind of like when people, oh yeah, they didn't know they were dating, it's like, really? Didn't know? Like, yeah, I could draw comparisons, but we're not going to do that. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed the news team. It felt like a dynamic that set up for more. And they were just in there enough to be able to create Clark's life without creating Clark's life. And along with Mara and Pa Kent as well, they did the same thing. So for me, it created depth where depth hadn't been necessarily created in the last iterations. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the news team. It was kind of a relief in some regards to have a bit of a fresh feeling between scenes. Just have this light moment of like, okay, there's more stuff going in the background. So yeah, I think they added to it. The film didn't feel out of place, and they gave Clark a sense of depth to his life. So you're gonna ask me now. Or I'm asking myself, what would I rate this film out of? 8 out of 10. Probably pushing to a 9. I feel like it's a film that will age nicely. It's a film I can watch again and again. I can go in with an in-depth mind. I can go in there just watching it as a general entertainment film. And there's various films to do that with. Not all films. Some superhero films are just one and done, and it's enough. Sometimes I've operated on the fact that the shock value works really, really well, like Infinity War. I don't think I'll watch Infinity War again with the same feeling I had when I was in the cinema, or the first few times watching it in the cinema, because it was still there processing it. So we're No Way Home. I love the cameos and stuff like that, but it takes away from the magic. I don't get the same spine tingle as I did. This film just felt lighthearted. It didn't need to hide anything in some regards. I love Bradley Cooper's incorporations being Jor-El. I still think that there's more to that than the meets the eye, and we might find out down the line. It might not be. It might just be a simple case of that, and that's how they remove his alien heritage, and maybe he just adopts his Kryptonian heritage along the way. I don't know. I think there's more to it than that. Because they wouldn't just knock his Kryptonian heritage aside, otherwise he'd stop going to the Fortress of Solitude. He'd have a complete complex way. And Kara probably knows more, and he'll probably speak to Kara about it, which will incorporate their relationship to expand upon. So there's a lot more behind the scenes. For me, I would say that this film captured the heart and essence of Superman. I've said it many, many times. I think purposely they've done certain things to try and keep on par with Superman comics and Superman iterations that have been more recent or not necessarily recent, more iconic, like the odd graphic novels. Again, All Star Superman being one of the biggest standing out there. I'm not just saying that because James Gunn said that, or he's made a comparison. You can see it out there. Not All Star Superman's entire core of its narrative, because obviously we know how it ends. Superman obviously goes into the sun to repair it, and in doing so, he's believed to be dead, or he's dying anyway. That obviously there, but the surrounding influences that are from All Star Superman, the impact of how people view him, there's so many different ones to draw from, comic books and things I've read that don't necessarily have a name for their run. It's a number of issues, but there's plenty of YouTube formats out there to go and find Superman sources as well in comics. There's a lot of people that do audio narratives, like Comic Historian. I enjoy listening to like that channel every so often to catch up on like Nightwing comics, which do feature Superman, and incredibly they capture Superman's essence as well. There was one recently that sort of like circulated on Facebook about Superman had just took a moment. He was exhausted and he was questioning everything and asking rhetorical questions to a degree, but then also asking questions out loud with someone listening because someone was on the roof with him and they had a taco in their hands or a burrito or something. And he's just like, yeah, sometimes I'm like, why do I even try? I'm fighting a never-ending fight. But he's like, you know what? I have to keep going because it's my right with these powers to be able to do something to help the world and try and help and inspire and encourage. Guy gives him a burrito, thanks, he bites the burrito, he's like really thankful for that, and he flies off. That's a really nice moment. And that's what this film captured, that. Every interaction he had with someone felt meaningful. Whether it was the vendor that came and jumped out, Marley that jumped out and helped him out the hole because of the previous relationship where he gave free food, to saving a little girl's life and she smiled and she gave him a hug and was really thankful at the end of it, to just generally people he had a bond with people or touched them in some way that made their life change from that point on, and you felt that from on screen. That's what Superman's about. He's a character we should all aspire to be, while also still be a bit grounded. And I think a lot of people get irritated by Superman's character being like that in the film. And you feel it from Lois, from Guy, from Lex, from probably Mr. Terrific and Hawkgirl and all of that. And they all differentiate themselves from Clark, but they all want to be around him, whether or not they want to admit it or not. Probably not so much Lex. He's more envied, but he's obsessed with them. An obsession obviously leads him down to do stupid things and eventually catches up with them. However, they all want to be Clark or be around Clark or inspired by Clark or have something they want from Clark. And I call him Clark because I'm referring to him as his human name because they very much lend on the fact that he's human. He cares, he loves, he feels hurt, he makes mistakes, but that's being human, and they emphasize it so much. You know, we've had Christopher Reeves that does imply the whole he's an alien from another world and he's here to help for truth, for justice, the American way. This is truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. That's not woke. I know people will say woke, but for me, comics have always been that way. It's about inspiring us to be better by visionaries, by people that are dreamers. And Superman is a dreamer. So why not be inspired? That's my thoughts on the video. I know I've drilled on for quite a while. I try and keep it condensed as possibly I can do. I have a lot of passion behind me, but I also try to articulate myself in a logical way. I'm very, very tired. So I watched Superman a few times. I costumed Superman at the weekend. I had an incredible moment as Superman. And again, this is what signified the character for me. An incredible moment, I dressed as Superman, and I had a moment, an opportunity to step into a situation and help create a memory, but also help a situation. A small boy was crying. His parents were there, and I had a moment. I saw his dad thank, and last night I got really upset about it. Not angry or anything like that, or disappointed. I got upset because it hit me home. I'm a dad, and seeing someone cry over fear and having that moment and that opportunity as dressed as Superman to influence that child's life, even for a couple of hours, felt incredible. And I upset is probably the worst. I cried basically almost. I let a tear down. It hit me emotionally. That's what Superman is. I love Batman. I really do. But no one's going to top Batman. It's always going to be number one for me. But just let yourself be a bit of Superman. Be a hopeful, naive idiot every so often. Smile, cry, feel. Doesn't have to be super edgy. You don't have to be super strong all the time. Being weak is being human. Having weak moments is being human. And it's being brave and admitting those moments. And I think that's the true essence of Superman. And that's what I took from the film. I hope you enjoyed it too. Let me know your thoughts, theories. Just be very careful and be cautious that people are on the internet and are reading these things and not necessarily always there intentionally wanting to read the top comment that comes up. However, just be considerate. just for the next couple of weeks. Let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to chat, and hopefully I'll do more of these. I may do costume comparisons, things like that. My sort of like A, B, Z list as such, a tier system, and I may do a compare Guns to Snyder's down the road. But right now, I think let's just stop that and let's just enjoy this film. Thank you for watching, guys, and hopefully catch you in the next one soon. Bye for now.